Hello friends, hope you're doing well. I'm making this video to give a brief explanation on my latest script, which is Auto Trendlines and Support Resistance Ultimate. In this video, we'll go through briefly about how the indicator is derived and a bit about settings and then how to use them. And let's get started. So the trend lines, the first thing is trend lines. To draw a trend line, what we do is, first draw a zigzag. So the zigzag is here, the settings are here. Right now we're using 8 as a zigzag length. If you want the trend lines to be drawn on a shorter time frames, try to reduce the zigzag length. Or if you want to do it on a longer time frames, try to increase the zigzag length. And based on the zigzag lengths, we first get the pivots, and then the next thing is the search depth. So we look for last 21 pivots here as per the settings. The search depth is 21. So look at last 21 pivots and see which direction the pivot highs and lows are going. So are they going in an uptrend? Are they going in a low downtrend? Or are they going in a both? Sometimes the trend will be choppy, and you can see, for example, if we increase the trend line, the depth search depth, we may also find a trend line which is passing through this probably, right? So because this is like the pivot heights which are going in a downward direction, and yeah, so we find the pivots high and lows which are going in a single direction and try to get a trend line out of this. And while deriving the trend, and we try to calculate different combinations. For example, you can see that this pivot is not touching anything. This also can be a trend line, right? So you can also draw a trend line something like this instead of this. Then why not? Why not this and why this? So what we do is we draw all possible trend lines whenever there's whenever we need to scan, and we'll try to calculate the strength. How the strength is calculated is, how many points, how many candles are touching the trend line, how many candles are inside the trend line, and how many are outside the trend line. All these things are considered while calculating the strength, overall strength. And in each direction, we'll only consider the strongest trend line, right? So you can see the line strength here. This is the arbitrary number, but actually this has been there's a scoring method which we have internally implemented in the script, right? So we derive the trend lines which are uptrend high, uptrend low, and also we derive downtrend high, downtrend low. But you can see that we only see two trend lines here. Downtrend high and downtrend low are not there. Why are they not there? That's because we have a setting called max pass distance. For example, if the trend line derived is more than 200 bars back, then ignore the trend line or do not show the trend line. So if you want to still show it, if you want to override the settings and show it, there are two options. One is increase this number. Other one is you check this retain last. Okay, so when you retain last, what happens? It will show the last trend line in each direction. So still calculating. Yeah, you can see this. It's a downtrend high, and this is a downtrend low, which are not significant anymore because the price has moved up a lot. So it's not really a valid trend line for our case at present. And also we have a setting that max angle, so that angle of the trend line is more than 60 is not sure because it may be too steep and it may not make much sense. So if you don't want to add this filter, you can actually change this. You can make it 90 so that all the trend lines are shown here irrespective of what angle they are in. And I'll uncheck the straight line last. Also, another option we have is show historical trail. So historical trail, by showing a historical trail, what we do is the trend lines keeps changing all the time. So enabling historical trail will show you where the trend line previous changes happened. See this? You can see that this trend line came to here and then it got changed. So it will show all the previous historical trails so that you can estimate how you could have traded um, during that time and all these things. Or you could have you can see the kind of a back test. You can visualize the back test how this trend line has behaved and all. But keep in mind that this is enabling historical trail will distort support resistance lines. That's because Pine script has a limitation that only up to 500 lines can be drawn. So since these historical trials take a lot of lines, so it may remove some of the old support resistance lines from the chart as well. Right, and that's about these two settings. And then reevaluate last. So this is nothing but when you are creating a trend line here, for example, when a new pivot is formed, it has to form a trend line. It just says that just re-evaluate the last trend line which is already there, and then rescore it again, and then compare it with the trend line which we have. So if you uncheck that option, what it happens is, it still considers the last trend line which is there, but it will not try to reevaluate the score. It will just take the previous score of the trend line, which may not be good because if there are more pivots touching this line, it should also consider that. Or if there are overflow which is happening on this line, it should consider that as well. So I prefer to use the reevaluate last option in this. And okay, so this is about how we derive the trend lines. So once we derive the trend lines, we need to find out a trend, overall trend. You can see that watermark here. We have tried to derive two things, which is the overall trend and what is the status. Okay, so how do we do that? So first thing what we do is we need to select most appropriate trend lines. The appropriate means there can be a few things like sort order. What we do is we sort the trend line in the order of which one is formed last. Right now what we have only two trend lines here. Maybe if you go to a different one, no, it's all of them have, okay, this one. If you see this one, it's still same because this trend line is too old, it's not considered. Maybe what we can do, we increase this to 400 probably, so that it will also show up this trend line. Let's see. Yeah, so it's also showing downtrend low here. See this one. So what it's trying to do is the sort order, it's trying to sort the trend lines in a which is most appropriate and all. So right now this the order of sorting is mm, when the trend line is formed. So it will check for the last bar, this trend line last contact happened 40 bars back. This is 165 bars back and it's 234 bars back. So it's considering these two trend lines because these are the most recent ones and this is slightly older one, right? So this trend line and this trend line are considered, so that it's saying that it's a falling wedge triangle. It's a falling wedge, right? And it's broken upside because the price is outside the higher trend line. So pivot high trend line, so it's broken outside. So let's change the sort order. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, you can see that this trend line is more stronger than the rest of the two. So if you change the sort order to line strength, it will be something different. Right? If you see line strength, this will move to the first position, the downtrend low will move to the first position, and you can see that at this point, these two are considered as the most appropriate trend lines, and the overall trend, instead of saying falling wedge or triangle, it says downtrend. Again, it's broken upside either way. Right, and similarly, another option which we have in sort order is distance. It is how far the close price is between the trend lines. So the closest two ones which will be taken. So here in this case, these two are the closest ones. So it's again goes back to falling wedge triangle and broken upside. Right. Okay. I prefer to keep the latest one so that we have the um, it uses the latest trend lines derived and not the old not something which is old and it's not appropriate anymore. But sometimes, in this case, even though this is the latest trend line, this one looks to be more appropriate one, right? So sometimes we need to apply our discretion here and see, how do we want to see this? Take this trend and status suggestion as just a suggestion and apply your own discretion on what actually happening here, what is the actual trend, and all those things based on the lines. Okay, and the next setting which we can see, so we discussed about how we derived the zigzag and trend line, and from the trend line how we derived uh, this trend and the status, and support and resistance, they are derived based on the zigzags again, and also based on the divergence, where oscillator, and you can use a list any of the oscillator which is listed here, and lines will show how many support and resistance lines you want to display on the chart. Right now it's only 10, yeah. So 10 overall 10, you can see that there's one resistance level and plenty of support levels for this. Right, go to the next. So alerts. So alerts can be of three types. First is a trend line alert, and new support resistance alert, and support resistance break alert. So trend line alert is just about the status. Whenever the status change, it will send the notification. So that means that whenever a new trend line is there, or whenever it's broken upside, downside, and all these things, you'll get alert notification and all those things, right? And new support resistance, whenever a new support resistance created, it will send an alert. And SR break, whenever the support resistance is broken, you will get an alert if you enable this. So you can choose which one you want to get alert, and enable or disable whatever you need, right? Max SR alerts, it is actually like, whenever a support resistance is broken, you will also send what is the nearest support and resistance levels. So this number will give you last three support levels and last three resistance levels, up to last three support and resistance levels, right? So the custom tag field is for users who use third-party bot services, etc. So if they want to add any more other information along with the alerts, they can use that. You can make use of this custom tag field. So all the alerts are sent as in a JSON format. So if you are writing a webhook to import these alerts, you can interpret it easily, and you can actually extract the values easily from this from the alerts. Okay, so that's about alerts, and I think one last thing is about the widgets. So the two widgets, like for one for support resistance here and one for trend lines. So if you don't want these widgets, you can actually disable them in the settings here. Also, you can control what position, where do you want them to be placed, and what is the size of the tables, and for support resistance, how many levels you want to show. That also you can configure it here. Right, and that's about the settings, and that's about the indicator. And how do you trade this? Like, one of my friend or one of my customer asked whether are we trying to derive these chart patterns. So actually not really. I'm not really trying to derive any of these chart patterns through this. I'm just trying to draw a trend line, and maybe you can use this trend line to interpret these chart patterns and trade in the same lines, right? So what I do is, I'm more interested in whether it's an uptrend. I'll try to buy in the when the price is near to the support level, or the lower uptrend low, pivot low trend line. If it's downtrend, it's probably try to short when it's near the resistance levels here. And also we can make use of these horizontal support resistance levels as a secondary confirmation as well. The triangle breakouts, this is actually pretty cool. Whenever there's a triangle breakout, and also towards the near of the triangle, when it breaks upside, just set a stop loss below the triangle, and target levels up to 1:2 or 1:1 or whatever your idea. I actually prefer to not set target levels. I prefer to trail my targets, like trail my stops. Whenever it moves up, I trade with it, and then when the trend reverses, let it hit and close the trade. Right, so that's about the indicator and how to use them. Let me know if you have any questions, and let me know if you have any suggestions. Thanks very much for watching the video. Wish you all the best. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Bye.